Hello everyone, and in today's video I want to talk about the three biggest lessons, intangible lessons that I learned through my time going from beginner at 19 to GB rowing team at 28. And going into how you can take away actions from my lessons. So the reason I am filming this is because I just did a post yesterday about quote good and bad coaches. You know, I guess it's quite a subjective thing, but just basically my opinion as to what makes a good coach or not. Tokyo's taking us into the forest. And one of the points I made was that if you've not rowed to a high level, an elite level, maybe not, international, but trials for your national team, competing at I don't know what else, you maybe winning head of the Charles in kind of open categories or Henley Royal. When you haven't done that, you, for a fact, have missed out on experiences and insight into what it truly takes to reach your next level. And yes, 99% of the people we coach are not trying to get into the GB team or their US team or whatever, or win loads of medals, maybe a couple medals. But you can condense these lessons and make them relevant to people in their training windows that they have. And that's what I think coaching and knowledge is all about, is just condensing time, condensing lessons into shorter time frames so that we can evolve as humans and we can get better. And anyways, I just know for a fact, I was a coach before I got into the GB team when I was slower. I was a coach then, and I know now that there were elements of my coaching that were missing because I didn't know what it took to get to the highest level of the sport. And yes, you can still be a good coach. Tokyo is freaking out. You can still be a good coach and have not rowed at this level, but there's just no way that you can be the best coach without having experienced that yourself. So he's going to take me into the mud here. There we go. Anyways, sorry, I'm just out on a walk right now with Tokyo, and we had to book somewhere that's far away from Glasgow because there's Guy Fawkes Night in Scotland, which basically just means fireworks go off for about a week straight, and Tokyo goes mental, and he has quite a loud bark. And no diazepam will cure it. Oh, here we go. He's happy. Okay, we're gonna have to move. Come on. So, what are the three lessons? Holy shit, I've been rambling for 3 minutes here. I hate it when YouTubers do this, when they say the point and then they just blab. They just waffle on. The 3 points are, the three biggest lessons are just general work capacity. So the more work you can do, the harder that you can work, the better, the faster you're gonna go. The second point is how focused can you be? How much can you get out of these sessions? So again, they're all related, but how, if you have 1,000 strokes in a session, how many of those strokes are going to be focused on improving your technique, staying focused, having good mindset? And then the third one is, how long can you go without getting positive feedback? How long can you stay in the saddle? How long can you have that delayed? I think the best word is delayed gratification, which I'm sure people have heard of before. How long can you go for that? And the number one thing I think that kind of encompasses all of it is that third point, is how well can you go for longer periods where you're not seeing progress? How many erg tests can you do? How many sessions can you do where it's not going well, but yet you keep going with that focus and you keep going with that work capacity? So in terms of like the advice I would give on each of these points for you that you can take home, number one is the work capacity. So how do you do more of that? I mean, this is a friggin' nightmare. Tokyo's like smelling something and he's freaking out. And my shoulder's getting sore from holding this camera. Number one, work capacity. How do you do more of that? Okay, that comes down to maybe more the science of it and how you get your training zones right. So I guess this is something that isn't necessarily related to the experience of an elite rower. It's more the science of knowing what you're capable of. So get your training zones right. Know what they should feel like. Know what training zones or what sessions you respond best to. And do more of that. Do it to a harder intensity. So how do you push that intensity? This comes down to the mindset of, and the motivation. So how do you push more? You have to practice failing and training. You have to be okay with failing. You have to be okay with putting yourself out there and doing something that you don't think you're going to do, or doing something without the fear of what happens if I get it wrong. So that would be the overall, that would be on being able to work harder. The second one of that first point is doing more. So if you can do more volume, if you can do more work capacity, again, that is just the ability to, when you really can't be arsed, when you really can't be fucked, can you get on the erg? Can you go for another 15 minutes? Can you warm up for 15 minutes when you should be? Can you do an extra session on the bike? Can you do an extra session when everybody else goes home? That's what I used to do at Edinburgh Uni. That made a big difference. And yeah, again, this is where it's maybe a bit less related to people that are restricted on time. But I do think even if you're on 4 or 6 sessions a week, there will come a point in your week where you are capped on time, but that's not what's really holding you back. What's holding you back is your mind. So that skill, how you coach that skill, how you guide people through that experience. As a rower that got to an elite level, knowing what that feels like, communicating that with an athlete and being able to guide them through that journey is number one, the biggest intangible on the experience that you get as an elite rower. Number two is the focus. So how do you, this comes down to racing as well. You know, how do you be totally in the zone with what you do when you're training and when you're racing? So staying dialed in when the crew beside you shoots off a length ahead, or when you feel like shit and you can't help but think about how tired you are going into a race and how much that's going to make you slow, or how much the wind is throwing you off for your 16K session and how much that is affecting your ability to stay calm and focused and process driven. Or just generally like a friggin' long session. You know, you're halfway through winter and you know you've not got a 2K for a while, head racing's done. How do you keep that sense of urgency and that ability to keep changing and keep improving? And what does that experience look like? And what sort of ways of reframing that journey can you better approach that idea of just focus? One simple take home I'd give you on that is, right, I want to stop walking. Tokyo, chill. If I'm just like squatting in the woods here, shout, comment squat if you've gotten this far. Hopefully no one comes around. For that second point of focus, I think the general process that we coach people on and that we train people on in training and in racing is recognizing when your thoughts have gone somewhere else, accepting it, and then having a controllable that you're going to focus on. RAC, we call it racking. You want to do that in racing. You want to be really good at that skill. You want to know what that process looks like. You want to do it in training, where you are looking for opportunities where you can practice how you respond to that. And again, getting very understanding, what does that look like? When are you focusing on something that doesn't matter, that isn't within your control, that you need to redirect your focus onto something that you can control? And then that's maybe that second part of that, where it's what is a controllable that you can focus on. A lot of the time it's a technical cue, physical cue, or a mental cue. That's the second point. The third point is the process of delayed gratification. So this is where it's just, they talk about it, like, what was that study they did with those kids where, I don't know how true this is, I feel like it's been debunked, but they had kids give them a sweet and be like, if you can hold off eating this sweet for 10 minutes, you'll get a second sweet and you can have 2 sweets then if you can hold off for 10 minutes. And they found the kids that were able to hold off for the longest amount of time had the strongest delayed gratification. 20 or 30 years later were, the best they were the smartest in school or whatever. They had the best jobs, whatever the fuck that means. And it's the same in rowing. Everybody gets to a point where they've not had progress, where they've not seen improvement, where they've not been rewarded for the training. They've not got that, good job, you did great, this training's working. And they get to a point where everything is telling them stop. Their body, their mind, the weather, their results in training, their lack of progress is all saying this isn't working, stop. And the more that you can get to that point and push past that point, so long as you're not risking injury or your health, the more progress you're going to have. And if the way I would view it, and one of the things that I learned is get very conscious when you get to that point. So this is when we work with our athletes. This is what we're clear on, is actually you're at a point where it's make or break, where you have the opportunity now to make an improvement, where you can separate yourself from the former version of yourself. You need to really recognize what that is in the situation and get very clear on it, and very cognitive and very conscious and very connected with what your body and your mind is telling you. And to really understand that and to almost seek it in a way. And from there, have a way of approaching it that you can move through it step by step. I remember for me, the probably most common time that this would come up is when I would be doing Strathclyde Park, 20k on my own in the single in February in Scotland, crosswind, rain, 3 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. And I'd always have to, it was the shutters, and I'd have to this cold metal chain that you had to pull for like a minute to get the shutter to go up. And so many times I'd be doing that and just be thinking like, damn, this is tough. Like, I'm struggling already and I'm just getting the shutter up. I've not even started the session. So it's that ability to look down the barrel of a 20k session and be like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't want to do this. I have no energy. I've got a hard session tomorrow. I'm not seeing any progress, and to just fucking do the session and to get on with it. And that process and that mindset and that understanding of what that looks like and how that feels and how you can go about going through that. I think that is by far the most intangible skill that you learn as an elite rower. And I think the more that you can get to that point and push past it, the better you'll get. And I think, in my experience, that is the point at which really caps people. And most people with rowing experience have gotten to that point and have backed off and have stopped pushing and have given up there. And that's not like that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, in my opinion at least, what I think makes the biggest difference. So, yeah. Cool, here we go. We've got the little deer track. Tokyo is freaking out because he's never seen a deer before. This is a reforestation project in Scotland. It's pretty cool. They're rewilding in Scotland because of the English. came in and put sheep on all the land and cut down all the trees, and there's no more trees anymore. But total tangent. If you've gotten this far, comment rewilding. But anyways, just my thoughts. Look, one of my criticisms of other coaches was that a bad coach is someone who has their mind up and they're like, it is this way, it is 100% this way. It's not like, no, they don't have that flexibility. So I'm maybe being hypocritical, because I'm being like, no, this is like, I believe that this is required to be a really great coach. And if you have my point is, if you have two coaches and both of them have 10 years experience, both of them have coached crews to national levels or international, whatever, but one of them has been on this journey that elite athletes go on of pushing yourself, and more so athletes that weren't genetically gifted, like myself, like the coaches in edge rowing. Like, look, I'm not trying to make this as a fucking sales pitch. I'm just trying to make the point that you do miss out on skills. And if you've not rowed to an elite level, and if you didn't get there without genetics, it's just such a different skill. It's just such a different experience that really makes for great coaching. But anyways, I hope that comes across in my content. Let me know what you think. I like to think I'm open-minded, but there's certainly some topics that I'm not. But anyways, okay, like and subscribe. Totally different style here, just total off the cuff. Bye, everybody.